Welcome to the subculture Q&A session. So my name is Dan and I'm a graduate student from University of Southern California. And I will be the moderator of this panel today. So please allow me to introduce our guest today, Jason Ma. Jason is an American media executive, artist, and a serial entrepreneur. He's a founder of East West Talents, brand strategy investment firm East West Ventures, formerly known as the East West Artist, a co-founder of 88 Rising and a co-founder of Stampede Ventures, and also a co-owner of Triller. So Jason, thank you so much for being here today. And we are so excited to dig into your thoughts on subcultures in both China and US.
What's up?
Okay, let's just get started. So first question, just in recent years, the subcultures are experiencing the dramatic growth in China. This year, there are 3 online talent shows of the rap in China. And instead of the rap, there are also talent shows of the DJ, street dance, rock bands, and basketball, etc. So in recent years, do you believe this is the sign of the Generation Z is taking over the culture of the marketing in China?
Well, I'm always a firm believer that subculture is pop culture. So, for example, 10 years ago, I predicted that hip hop music or hip hop culture or rap culture, rap music would become mainstream pop. And back then people were like, no, it's Taylor Swift, it's Justin Bieber, it's, this, that, and the third. But what you see nowadays, if you check the Billboard charts for the first time since 2018, that what rules the top 100 is hip hop. And so when you look at global pop charts right now, the majority of the top 100 tracks are hip hop based tracks. So even the Biebers and even the Selena Gomez and even, the Ed Sheerans, right? They're all collabing with rap artists. And so what you see ruling the charts these days is hip hop. And hip hop has now become mainstream. Hip hop is pop culture. 10 years ago, it was, crazy to see Drake, being sponsored by Sprite, right? And now in the US, you see J Balvin, right? Who's a reggaeton artist, who's technically top 5 artists on the planet, have his own McDonald's value meal. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you don't understand the power of subculture, I mean, look at Supreme, right? Look at Yeezy, look at any subculture brand, right? Hypebeast, whatever. That's what the kids are rocking. That's what the kids are on, because people want to be different. People want to stand out. People want to be special, right? People want to have identity. And there's so much noise because of the internet. There's so much information now, and there's so much access to information that if you don't stand out, if you're not differentiated, if you're not unique, if you're not special or specific, then you just become part of the noise. So absolutely, I think subculture is pop culture, and we have to understand that and embrace it.
Sure. So for the second question, it has been like 3 years since Rap of China went viral in China. And this year, 88 Rising was enters the Chinese market, collaborating with the Chinese YouTube, which called Bilibili, to start a rap talent show called Rap of Youth. So which Higher Brothers and Rich Bryant are being instructors. So what do you think of the strategy of 88 Rising entering the Chinese market?
I think it's a definitive moment for 88 Rising. A lot of people view 88 Rising as just a Asian American music label or media channel. But for us to be able to penetrate locally on a massive social media and streaming platform like Bilibili shows that we can do what the locals can do at the highest level. And so, and I think what's unique and different about, what we bring to the table is, there were many opportunities years ago when 中国有嘻哈 and Rap of China wanted, Higher Brothers and our artists on the first season of Rap of China and season 2 and season 3. But they wanted like Higher Brothers and they wanted the 88 Rising artists to participate, right? And be in the contest. And I was just like, nah, this is not their level. This is not our level, right? And so, I think being able now to have the artists at 88 Rising host the show and be judges shows the level of the brand, right? We're not a brand that's here to, have our artists compete in a competition because they're amateurs. They're not amateurs. 88 Rising only signs the best of the best artists. That's why we're international. If you get assigned with 88, that means you have international quality. You have international appeal. You have an international standard. You're not just a local standard. And so for us, any artist that's signed to 88 Rising, they have to be local, but they also have to be global. Like when I first heard Higher Brothers, their YouTube video, this is like 5 years ago. They had like less than 1,000 views. And I was like listening to them with my co-founder, and we're just like, yo, this is like the dopest Chinese hip hop we've ever heard, and I've been listening to Asian hip hop and Chinese hip hop for decades, right? But it was the first time that I really felt like, wow, this is something original. It's something authentic. Their skill set, their flow, their rhyme schemes, their swag, their presentation, they were the full package. But I saw that at less than 1,000 views on a YouTube video. I still remember one of our staff had turned us on to Higher Brothers, and they were just young, out of Chengdu, but they were just like raw, man, just like, they had street cars, and they were just like rapping, out of their hood, and they were just bringing it real, and they're bringing it authentic, and so long story short is, when we saw that, we knew, okay, these artists, these rap artists, this crew is bigger than China. They're bigger than China. They can take hip hop outside of China, and that prediction, right, or that gut decision, that gut knowing, has proven true. So I think with Billy and this collaboration with 88 Rising, bringing on Rich and Rich Brian, and bringing on Higher, it just shows you, after so many years in the hip hop game and pop culture, Higher Brothers they're here to stay. They're not. That's a problem with a lot of these TV shows in China, is that you have a bunch of artists perform and then you forget them, right? After the hot social media craze, whether it's Yiling Yi or whether it's Chonggu Yoshiha or whether it's whatever show, is that you get these artists on, and then after a while, everyone forgets who they are, right? Because they're not truly skillful. They're not at that level of artistry that is truly, the A game. And so I think it's always better to be patient than to rush. And I always say, when it comes to art, there's a process. You have to go through the process. If you don't go through the process, you don't put in your 10,000 hours. There's a book out there by Malcolm Gladwell called The Outliers. It's a famous book. He wrote the book Tipping Point. If any of you guys are watching out there, read these books. Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. But he says that no one can be great at anything unless they spend 10,000 hours doing it, right? So, before the Higher Brothers came out and got signed by 88, they had already put in their 10,000 hours, and it's not just the Higher Brothers. There's a lot of those CDC rappers, and there's other rappers in China that I do respect. But there hasn't been a lot of them. I got to be honest with you. I haven't found a lot. I found a few, right? And so I just think, at the end of the day, the show with Billy is really about skill. It's not about hype. It's not about just popularity. It's really about rap culture. And I think, if the differentiation with, the show that, we're able to co-produce is that, we're really bringing true rap skills, rap culture, and the principles of hip hop to the game, more than just, an entertainment show to just make you want to watch and have girls like fan out. This is for the true hip hop head.
Cool. I really agree with that. And then let's talk about the esports. I know you are involving with esports industry as well, for example, FaceClan team. So the esport market in the China, so I mean, the sports market in the China is not as developed as the US for sure, but esport is really big now in China, especially among the young generation, since the games like the League of Legends and Dota, etc. So what is your vision about esports in both US and China?
Esports is the fastest and biggest sport in the world, right? You can't even compare, right? Because the reality is like, I'm old, like I didn't grow up with an iPhone, you know what I'm saying? I didn't grow up with a Huawei, I didn't grow up with a Samsung, but when I'm in China these days, I feel like if I walk into a restaurant or a cafe or a Starbucks or whatever, I'm on the street, like every single kid is like, like this 24/7, right? And everyone's playing whatever, Rao or League of Legends or Dota. You got people like JJ Lin and Jeremy Lin, playing Dota. You got the Migos, playing Fortnite, and so esports to me is also a subculture that has now become pop culture. Esports is the fastest growing sport outside of MMA and UFC. And I think one, because it's virtual, so there's no barrier, right, to play and get involved. Like you don't have to be a basketball star and be 6'10" and be a gladiator, physically, to play ball. You know what I'm saying? Like you can literally pick up your phone, have a PC and a computer, and you have a chance to compete, right? And I think that's the reality of what we live in. We live in a digital era. We live in a digital generation. We live in a digital world. And so it only makes sense that the fastest growing sport in the world is digital. And so, you're seeing people like PewDiePie, Ninja. I mean, these guys are like charging crazy money, like 7 figures, right, to go and battle each other, on a League of Legends or a Fortnite or whatever the game is. And what I see with like FaZe Clan, I've been, in conversations with them about their Asia strategy, is FaZe Clan was dope about them is they built esports into a brand, into a lifestyle, right? Whereas a lot of people think of, when you say video games, the first thing that pops into your head is like, Nintendo and a nerd. You know what I'm saying? You think of a geek, that's just in front of his computer, just like geeking out. You know what I'm saying? A dude with a Dr. Pepper and a Coke bottle in his hand and some chips on the other side in his room, just like geeking out. But what's reality is everyone's playing games. It's not just, digital nerds and geeks in the room that have no social life. I mean, you're talking about like the biggest rappers in the game. You're talking about, Justin Bieber. You're talking about the Migos. You're talking about NBA players. You're talking about, everyone is playing esports, right? And so what's dope about FaZe Clan is they made content around the lifestyle of esports, around the culture of esports, and they made esports cool, right? In many ways, it's like how 88 Rising made Asian hip hop culture cool, and beyond just, oh, that's just, Asian rap. It's not great. It's not good. You know what I'm saying? No, it is great. There is amazing rap artists, right? And 88 Rising brought that to the world. In the same way, you have groups like FaZe Clan and 100 Thieves and and others that have created their own like supreme fashion lines. You know what I'm saying? Like 100 Thieves has their own fashion line. FaZe Clan has their own fashion line. They sell out in New York and Soho. When they announce a day before, there's like 10,000 kids lining up around the block to buy FaZe Clan gear, right? Which is crazy. So long story short is I think esports is here to stay. Esports is only going to get bigger. I'm not surprised if it, I think that they already hit numbers like bigger than the American Super Bowl as far as like viewership for, world championships. So, I think at the end of the day, I think one statistic I heard was 50% of American teenagers play video games or play esports games. So think about that. That's like as high as the divorce rate in the United States. It's crazy. It's completely part of culture, global.
Sure. And let's talk about the short videos. So the short video is considered to be a future video trend. So there are apps like Vines in US that focus on the short videos, but the short videos get virus again this year because of the TikTok. So which is an international version of the Douyin owned by Chinese company ByteDance. And now the Triller and the Instagrams are also in the short video market to compete. So do you think that China and the United States are influencing each others on the subculture level?
I can't look. I don't want to get into politics.
Yeah, sure, of course.
This is. I don't think this is a U.S. and China thing. I think this is just where young people's minds and engagement is at. I was an early investor in Musical.ly. Okay. And I still remember when I was, if a lot of you don't know that out there listening, before there was a TikTok or before there was a Douyin, there was a company called Musical.ly. And Musical.ly basically created this lip sync karaoke dance format, right? 15 seconds, maximum 60 seconds for you to lip sync and dance to a song. And that was a new format that I had never seen until I had actually seen it, right? Because I was early days, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I took my boss, MC Hammer, to YouTube when it was 5 people above a pizza parlor in San Mateo. And that was in 2005. When Musical.ly came out and I saw it, I was like, yo, this is crazy. And the majority of the kids that were on Musical.ly were non-Asian American kids, okay, that were like 13 to 16 years old, right? And they were just making these little lip sync dance battles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I still remember, I work for a fund called Goodwater Capital, and we had just started the fund back then. This was like 2015, I think. And we're a brand new fund in Silicon Valley. We're not Sequoia. We're not Greylock. We're not Benchmark. We're not Andreessen Horowitz. And Musical.ly just starts taking off. And so it becomes like the hot social media company in Silicon Valley. And at that time, I remember Greylock and a few others were taking the whole entire round. And we got in touch with the founders of Musical.ly, Louis, June, Alex. And they were like, we don't have any room, in the round. So I remember, my partner saying, Jason, you got to help us. We got to figure out a way to get an allocation. And so this is like, you can ask Louis, it's hilarious. I was with Paris Hilton in Shanghai, the Paris Hilton, right? And I brought her into the Shanghai office of Musical.ly. And it was like 40 Chinese kid engineers and this, beautiful blonde bombshell Paris Hilton walking into Musical.ly, and these kids going like, and I have her sit down. I remember with June from Musical.ly, one of the co-founders, and he's like teaching her how to do a Musical.ly. And then after that, I told them, hey, I'm going to help you guys. I'm going to get you guys Ariana Grande on the platform, because at the time, Musical.ly had not broken out into mass culture. It had not gotten into the hands of major celebrities. And so I was like, I'm going to get you Ariana Grande, and she'll be the first AAA class celebrity on Musical.ly. And after that, the value of bringing in someone like Ariana is going to make it go overnight to everyone, right? And I said, but you got to give me an allocation. You got to give us an allocation. And so we worked it out. We ended up getting Ariana on the platform at the time through a management company that I was partnered with called Untitled Entertainment in Hollywood. They managed her at the time. And after that, Justin Bieber got on, Selena Gomez got on, everyone got on. And then boom, Musical.ly just scaled, went to like 100 million MAU and DAU globally. And then within, I think it was like less than 18 months, ByteDance Total acquired the company for $1 billion. And that was a super, super smart move for ByteDance. Super smart move, right? Because ByteDance had already saw what Musical.ly did. Musical.ly was a Chinese company that blew up in America, right? And they decided not to go into the China market, right? And I'm not going to say whether it's a mistake or not, but the reality was ByteDance, Total, saw that, copied basically the same format, launched Douyin in China overnight in like 24 months. It was like 200 million users, right? And by that time, Musical.ly could not catch up. So they had to sell, right? My point with all that being said, now I would say that ByteDance, what they added to it was AI, right? ByteDance's AI is on another level, right? And so when they added in the AI recommendation system, that took Musical.ly, which now became TikTok, to a whole nother level. With Triller, I saw the same opportunity, right? In 2018, someone introduced me to the CEO of Triller, Mike Liu, and it was a very similar format, right, to Musical.ly. And at this time, remember, TikTok was still not huge in the US or huge outside of China, right? It was just transitioning to TikTok, and it had not like gone super mainstream, but it was a lot bigger than Triller. And Triller was focused on a subculture. Triller was focused on hip hop culture. It was mainly Black and brown youth in America. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is interesting. This reminds me of Musical.ly. But the MAU DAU at the time was very low. It was still like under 100,000. So I didn't invest at the time because the MAU DAU was still low. But I was like, you know what? I'll stay on as an advisor, and I'll kind of watch how this thing grows. And it was around February last year. Same thing happened. All of a sudden, all these hip hop artists start posting on Triller. Chance the Rapper, Cardi B, Eminem, Chris Brown, DJ Khaled. And we're not paying them anything. They're just doing it because they think it's cool, right? They're just messing with the brand. They're like, yo, like TikTok will pay DJ Khaled some crazy amount of money, and then the next day, DJ Khaled will post on Triller for free. And we didn't even ask him, right? So that's when I was like, oh, this has become a cultural brand, right? You can't pay for brand. You can't pay for Supreme. You can't pay for Nike. You can't pay, for World Star Hip Hop. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a brand. And so at that time, I was like, okay, interesting. And then I was in London speaking at a Founders Forum, an entrepreneur event. And then a friend of mine introduces me to these AI engineers from Oxford. And they had a different type of AI than TikTok. Their AI was, they were like, hey, we got to show you our AI technology that can basically, with the press of a button, make you a music video, a short film. And I saw it and I was like, yo, this is actually legitimate. This is actually impressive. I was like, what are you guys doing? And they were like, well, we got offered by a major social media company to be bought out for 60 million, or we're going to go raise capital to go compete against TikTok. And I said, I got a better idea. There's a company that I work with called Triller. Come back with me to LA and let's merge your AI company with Triller, and we can become, the second TikTok, but super focused on urban, super focused on hip hop culture, right? First. And it's kind of like MTV as BET, right? And so long story short, we got the deal done. Me and my partners at Proxima Media, Ron Kavanaugh and Bobby, and our investors, WTT out of Taiwan, we were able to acquire Triller, and through music. So our different lane with Triller than TikTok. Why we're different? A lot of people say like TikTok is like America's Got Talent and Triller's like MTV BET, right? A lot of people say like TikTok is like Disney Plus and Triller's like Apple Plus. So it's friendly competition to me, right? Because to me, you have to have healthy competition in the market, right? You have Douyin, you have Kuaishou, right? You have Uber, you have Lyft, right? And so with TikTok and Triller is totally similar but different demographics, right? TikTok, a lot of it is younger kids, tweens, where Triller is a lot older demographic, and we focus mainly on music. We have all the music labels, Sony, Warner, Universal, have given us their full license for all of their music libraries. So you can play an entire song, a Chris Brown song, Ariana Grande song for 60 seconds, right? And record a Triller video with our AI, automatically edit it, and post it onto any social media, and it doesn't get taken down. And so I think, what's unique about it is that, give you an example, like The Weeknd, he posted his first single in 2 years, Heartless, on Triller exclusively. It got over 100 million views and got over 50 million streams. And because Apple Music is integrated in Triller, every time someone listened to The Weeknd single on Triller, it counted as a stream. So Triller broke the record to go double platinum, right? And so I think that's what's very unique about Triller is it's very music focused, works with the music labels, works with the music artists. TikTok does too, but I would say like that is really our niche, right? Is that we are partnered with the music industry. We have the Triller Billboard charts. We just launched this week, Cardi B song that was trending on Triller's Billboard charts for weeks, and now is number one across all Billboard charts worldwide. So anyways, where this is going is, it's video. It's interactive video, short form video. This is where kids are at, especially in the midst of pandemic, right? You're sitting at home, you got nothing to do. What are you going to do? You're going to make a Triller. You're going to make a TikTok, right? And you're going to make something from your house in your room right there with your phone and post it, online. And I think that's where the world's going, and you see companies like Quibi that just shut down, right? Jeffrey Katzenberg raised $2 billion, right? But you have a 70-year-old, Hollywood executive choosing content for 17-year-olds, right? And they're blaming the pandemic for why it doesn't work. That's crazy. Content is working. Content has never been more in demand than right now in the midst of the pandemic, right? It's just about how does that content get consumed? Is it someone choosing the content for you, or is it content that people are actually generating themselves? I think it's really a UGC world that we live in today.
Sure, interesting. And Jason, you just touched something about the pandemic, and the next question is related to the pandemic as well. So we believe that the pandemic has both pros and cons, and the young generation seems to adapt it to the lifestyle caused by the pandemic, since they are comfortable to communicate, to be entertained, and shopping on the internet instead of face-to-face. So do you believe that the pandemic will change the consumption habits of the young generation or even other generation as well?
Short answer, 100%. Absolutely. What the pandemic has done is force the entire world to go global and digital and e-commerce, or in other words, virtual. So you can't leave your house. How are you going to get your food, right? You can't leave your house. How are you going to get, tools to go, fix your sink? You can't leave your house because you can't go to a shopping mall. How are you going to get your Supreme shirt? How are you going to get your underwear, right? You can't leave the house. How are you going to get anything, right? And yes, sure, there's essentials that are open, like grocery stores and Home Depot, or, specific things that are essentials that the government allows. But who wants to go out of their house, and put themselves at risk to get COVID, right? So I always said that China was always ahead of the game. Like when I'm in China, like I can just sit in my hotel room the whole day, and be on multiple different apps. I remember one time I was in China and I forgot my shaver. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm an Asian dude with like facial hair, right? And I remember telling my assistant, I was like, "Yo, I forgot my shaver. I don't have an electric shaver. I use an electric shaver. I don't use like regular shavers." And so I told one of my friends on WeChat, I was like, "Oh man, I forgot my shaver. I don't know where I can get one." She's like, "Oh, what's your hotel and what's your room number?" And I was like, "Oh, blah blah blah." Yo, in 1 hour, some dude came on a bike and dropped off an electric shaver, at my hotel room. That's China, right? It's like you press a button, it's there. You go to Southeast Asia, Gojek, same thing, super app. Press a button, you can get your nails done, you can get your hair done, you can get a massage, you can get groceries, you can get, anything you want, right? It's Amazon Prime. But I think America was forced, and I would say the Western countries were forced to now experience shopping and everything that they need had to become e-commerce and virtual. And so that's what you've seen. DoorDash, Postmates, Uber Eats explode, right? Amazon Prime explode, right? I'm sure in Asia, whether it's Alibaba or Tmall or, the other platforms, right? Huge growth, right? Because now the world's changed. We now live factually and real time in a virtual world. We live in a digital world. Everything can be done virtually. Everything can be done digitally. And so I don't really think young people were forced to. I think young people were already on it. And then now the older generation, like myself, millennials, Gen X, boomers, our parents, they were all forced to start utilizing, apps, right, to go and get what they want. So absolutely, that's where we're at.
Sure. So for last question, since the pandemic of this year, the job market is tight, and the new graduates are struggling at this time. So as a successful entrepreneur, can you share some your career story maybe that can maybe inspire our international students?
How much time do we have? No, Stan, how much time do we have? I mean, I can share as much as you want.
This is actually the last question, actually.
So 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Probably, 15 minutes, actually.
15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I can share, if I have 15 minutes, I'll share, the overview of my career journey. I've been in the media entertainment technology sector now for 20 years. I'm 39 years old. And it's interesting, when I first started, I never thought I would end up doing what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? But when I was 7 years old, my dad asked me what I want to be when I grow up. And I took out a piece of paper and I drew out 3 pictures of myself. And one was me in a business suit with a tie and a suitcase. And one was me with a French Pierre cap and a paintbrush and a paint palette. And the third was me in a church behind a church pulpit preaching or speaking. So my dad was like, what is this in Chinese? He's like, I speak Cantonese, right? And I was like, Dad, well, Monday through Friday, I want to be a businessman like you. I said, Saturday, I want to be an artist. And Sunday, I'm going to be a preacher. And my dad says, right? Smart aleck. And I never would have thought, in my 20 years, career-wise, I ended up doing all 3 at different phases. But long story short, straight out of high school, I started working at a tech company in Silicon Valley. I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, specifically San Jose. And I worked at a tech startup across from Apple Computers in a city called Cupertino. At the same time, I became a born-again Christian, and I started a hip-hop Bible study in the hood to get kids off the street. And around that time, there was a major legendary rapper named MC Hammer. For all you young kids out there that don't know who MC Hammer is, MC Hammer was the first entrepreneur in hip-hop. He had first rapper to sell 100 million records, have his own cartoon, fashion show, fashion brand, his own, technology, his own Pepsi commercial, everything. So before there was Jay-Z or P. Diddy or any of these guys, there was MC Hammer. He's from the Bay Area. And MC Hammer, he was signed to Death Row Records. And after Tupac died, he witnessed it. And he came back to the Bay and he started preaching at a church. So I hunted him down and got him to come speak at my inner city hip hop Bible study. And when I hustled to get his attention, he was like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I work at a tech startup in Cupertino across from Apple. He's like, really? He's like, I invest in startups. It's 20 years ago, 1997, more than 20 years ago. And he was like, you're Asian. You must know how to use computers. Come work for me. And I was like, what? MC Hammer, you serious? So I dropped my job. I became his assistant at 17. And when I got to his office, he was like, Jason, everything's Bluetooth, wireless. This is 1997. I'm 17 years old. And he's like, the future of music, the future of Hollywood, all of it's crumbling down. It's about rich content, digital distribution. Hollywood's coming to Silicon Valley. And I thought he was crazy, okay? We ended up at Facebook when it was less than 100 people. We were at Twitter when it was literally less than 5 people. We're at YouTube when it was less than 5 people. We were at Salesforce when it was less than 10 people. And he predicted what is happening now. Who owns Hollywood now? Not Hollywood, not Warner Brothers, not Sony, not Paramount, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, you know what I'm saying? And Google, YouTube, TikTok, Triller. So we started investing very early on. And I just learned the game following him. And then we ended up investing in Justin Lin's first movie. So if you don't know who Justin Lin is, he's a director for Fast and Furious, the franchise, the movie, with Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez and The Rock. But he was the first one to make Fast and Furious big. So he directed Fast and Furious 3, 4, 5, 6, now 9 and 10. He created what we know now as Fast and Furious. But when we met Justin, he was at UCLA, just graduated from the film school. And he was at CES, Consumer Electronics Trade Show in Vegas, and checking out high-tech cameras. He bumps into Hammer, meets Hammer, and he's like, Hammer, I'm making my first real independent Asian American movie. It's called Better Luck Tomorrow. And he was like, I'm sick and tired of Asians being, you know, typecast as Goonies and geishas and geeks and gangsters in Hollywood movies. I want to make a true story about an Asian American murder at this Asian American high school in Orange County. And I want to make it dope. He gets Hammer's number. 3 months later, he calls Hammer. He's like, Hammer, I don't know what to do. I maxed out 10 credit cards. My parents lent me all their money. If I don't have X amount of money in the bank account tomorrow morning, they're going to take away all my movie equipment, my film equipment, production equipment, and I can't finish my movie. I'm screwed. And Hammer just had this sixth sense. And Justin was like, I need cash now. And so Hammer went to the bank, I remember, and he just wired him the cash. Nothing signed. He just saw something in him. So a year later, I'm in the office, and I see online Roger Ebert, the #1 film movie critic, gives 2 thumbs up to Asian American director Justin Lin at Sundance Film Festival, the most prestigious film festival in the world. And I'm like, Hammer, is this that dude, that Asian dude that we invested in? He calls him up, and he's like, Justin. And he's like, So we go down there to LA, and we see this film premiere. And if you watch Fast and Furious, there's a Asian actor named Sung Kang, Korean, the guy that dies and comes back every other franchise. Better Luck Tomorrow was his first movie, his first co-lead role. John Cho, who's in Star Trek, which was directed by Justin Lin as well, and Soul Searching and Harold and Kumar, that was his first lead role, right? And so when I saw this movie, and I was like 19, 20 years old, I was like, yo, this is crazy. This is the first time I ever seen people that look like me, talk like me, and are like me in a Hollywood film done right. And at that time, I was like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my career and the rest of my life. I want to represent Asian culture in mainstream media the right way. And so I told Hammer, I'm going to leave venture capital and I want to go to LA and go to UCLA or USC and get my master's in film and television. Well, my hip hop Bible study grew to like hundreds of kids. It was impacting the whole city. And actually my hip hop Bible, a lot of groups like Jabberwockies and others came out of that. But I told my Musa, my pastor, I was like, hey, God's calling me to Hollywood and I'm going to go to LA. And he said, that's not God talking to you. He said, that's the devil talking to you. He was like, that's Mogwai. That's Satan talking to you. And so he was like, you need to go Bible college. I'm like, what? He's like, you need to be a missionary. And I was like, missionary? You crazy? So I literally had Hollywood in one hand. I had third world missions in the other. And I remember talking to Hammer, and I called him pastor because he was like my Musa. He was like my mentor. I said, what should I do? And he said, Jason, and he gave me the best advice I ever got as a young person. He said, Jason, Hollywood's always going to be there. But if you go to Hollywood in the spiritual condition you're in right now, those demons will eat you up. You won't come out alive. If I were you, lay a strong spiritual foundation, build your character, do God's work, and serve God's people. And if he calls you back into Hollywood, he'll still be there. So I took his advice. I ended up going to theological seminary, studied the Bible for 4 years, got my master's, and I went around the world to 40 countries. And I started hundreds of missions and health clinics and schools, et cetera, et cetera. But I still remember in 2006, I was in Shenzhen actually, and China was just beginning to open up, and smartphones had just started coming out, like Palm Trios and Blackberries. And I remember seeing kids going to clubs, and I was just like, yo, I can't build brick and mortar schools and churches fast enough to reach the youth of China, the youth of Asia. There's like 1 billion of them. I was like, it's got to be mobile. It's got to be digital. And so I went back to LA and I transitioned out of my mission work and I invested in my first media entertainment company. And that media entertainment company was an Asian American media entertainment company. And we managed 2 rap artists. One was called Far East Movement. That if you don't know who they are, they were the only Asian hip hop group to go #1 on the Billboard charts until recently, like BTS, but they were the first hip hop group with a song called Like a G6 that you might have heard about. And the other rapper was MC Jin. And if you know MC Jin, hip hop man from Zhongbi Yoshiha, he was the #1 battle rapper in America, but he was signed to DMX and then he left that label and then this company signed them. I invested in the company, but this is before they became big. So we sent Jin on a one-way ticket to Universal Music, Hong Kong, with ABC, American Born Chinese, ABC Hang On, that rap track and that album that he recorded in 48 hours, by the way, freestyle. And then 6 months later, Far East Movement recorded Like a G6 that went #1 and sold 15 million records. And then I, by some divine chance, was recording my 3rd record, and I got a little singer named Bruno Mars that used to write for us, and I paid him $1,500 to give me 4 songs. And I have 4 tracks with Bruno, and he's half Filipino, he's half Asian. He went #1 that year, and our company took off. So I built that company, PCA, and my dream was still, how do I give a digital platform to every Asian artist to basically show their talent? So then in 2011, I partnered with HTC Corporation, Wang Shihong, Sher Wang from Taiwan, and she was 100 million handsets at the time in US and China were the biggest markets, and they had just bought Beats by Dre, they had just bought TVB in Hong Kong, but they're like, everything's going digital. So she was like, Jason, I don't want to deal with Hollywood, you deal with it. So me and her nephew, my best friend, his name's Phil Chen, we started East West Ventures, which is now kind of like a miniature CAA, meets merchant bank for media, entertainment, and technology. So we've done over 1 billion in transactions. And this is when China started opening up. So in China in 2011, 2012, the entertainment market, consumer market started exploding. WeChat started coming on, Youku started coming on, Weibo started coming on. And then you started seeing movie theaters explode in China. And so that's when Wanda and Huayi and Bona, everyone started coming into Hollywood at that time. So I was like, you know what? Someone's got to capture this arbitrage. I know the Hollywood side. I also know the China-Asia side. So we started East West Ventures, and we started doing deals between Asia and Hollywood, Hollywood and Asia. And as I was doing this, we're representing a lot of talent and producing a lot of films. And so I would see clients like Wang Lihong and Wong Fu Productions out of LA, and they had tens of millions of subscribers on their social media. But I'm like, why is there not a digital media channel focused, right, on Asian music artists and Asian digital content creators? And at that time, Vice Media, BuzzFeed, Vox, Maker Studios, right? They were all popping up. And so I went out and I raised capital. I raised a seed round of $2.5 million. And I basically told my investors, I want to make the Asian Vice. And they're like, what's that? I said, at the time, I didn't know how to explain it. So I was like, we're the Asian Vice. We're called Rice. And the name was RYCE, was a business plan. And I had found Sean, who's now, the CEO of 88 Rising. He was at Vice Media at the time. And so I said, leave Vice, join me, do what you did at Vice here. And we started 88 Rising. And the whole idea of 88 Rising was, music labels, we're not going to sign Asian artists for the Western market, right? It's unheard of. They'll sign Asian artists for the Asian market. So I said, I'm just going to raise my own money. I'm going to raise venture capital, and we're going to back our own artists. We don't need a label. We have YouTube, we have social media, we have Instagram, we have Snap. Let's just go direct. So we're going to produce our own content, sign our own artists, launch, direct to consumer on social media, on our social channels. And it blew up. Keith A, Rich Chiga, which then became Rich Brian, Hire Songdi, Joji, and on and on and on. And then now we're tens of millions of subscribers, multi-billion views. And, the company is invested by the biggest companies in the world, WPP, Jimmy Iovine, ByteDance, Billy, Steve Chen, founder of YouTube. And so it's been really, really interesting with that. And then I transitioned out of 88 Rising. I'm not operational anymore because I fully vested. And I started seeing the demand for premium content. And so in 2018, I started Stampede Ventures. Stampede Ventures is a premium Hollywood studio with my main founder and co-founder, Greg Silverman. He's a former president of Warner Brothers. If you guys don't know Greg Silverman, he's made a few movies at Warner Brothers, like you might know, called Harry Potter. He licensed Harry Potter for $25,000 when 140 publishers passed on it. He made Hangover when every studio said this script is stupid and no actor wanted to do it, the lead role. So he found an unknown actor named Bradley Cooper. He turned Batman 5 after George Clooney was a flop, and he gave a little director named Christopher Nolan his chance and created Dark Knight. He made Lego, a toy company, into a movie when everyone thought he was stupid. And long story short was, he said, Jason, I want to leave Warner because even though I made Harry Potter, Lego, and $25 billion at box office, we don't own the IP 360. We just own the movie rights. And he's like, Lego just went 5X in their toy sales, and we didn't get any of that upside. So he's like, Jason, I want to leave Warner. I want to go buy Mattel toys and then make the Barbie and Hot Wheel movie. So we started Stampede in 2018, and we're now the hottest Hollywood studio in Hollywood. We've sold and set up 50 movies and TV projects in the last 20 months. During pandemic, we sold at least one major feature film or TV series every week during pandemic. So after that, I experienced what it's like to build a premium studio and be a studio executive and see the demand for premium content. Don't tell me content is not in demand. Content is king, right? But you have to package it. It has to be premium, right? And there's only so many that can do it at that level. So it was after that, I then invested in Musical.ly. Then we acquired Triller, right? And now I'm mainly investing, but I'm launching my next platform called EST. And my next platform, EST, is called Eastern Standard Time because I'm like, Asia does not have its own media voice or media brand, if you think about it, right? You have local media for local regions in Asia, CCTV, TVB, CJ, whatever it is, right? But there's no global media coming out of Asia to the rest of the world, right? So look at what's happened during the pandemic. China's getting crushed in PR, right? It's New York Times that controls the China narrative. It's Washington Post that controls the China narrative, right? It's CNN, it's Fox, right? And that's why you're seeing this anti-Chinese sentiment. You're seeing xenophobia, anti-Asian hate crimes happening to me, happening to my friends, to my family, right? Because we don't have media. We don't have our own media voice that's global, right? So EST is a play on words. What I'm saying is not New York time anymore. It's Asia's time to tell its own story to the world. So I'm launching a new media platform called EST, Eastern Standard Time. It'll be launching next year. And I want everybody watching this, every single one of you, to be a part of this platform, because my goal with this new platform is to give every Asian young person a microphone through their cell phone to tell their story. And so I say that Facebook's your student self, Instagram's your best looking self, LinkedIn's your business self, TikTok's your entertainer self, but EST is going to be your storyteller self. So we're going to create a social platform for every storyteller, every creator, to be able to tell their story, like their own 3-minute pitch, movie trailer pitch of any story, fiction or nonfiction, on our platform. And we're going to focus it on Asian international students first. Like early days Facebook, you'll get invite only, and then we're going to test it out, give us your best stories. And if your story actually hits, we're going to then develop and package it into a feature film, into a TV series, into a premium documentary series, et cetera, et cetera. So it's merging what I've done with 88 Rising, what I've done with Stampede in premium studio content, and what I've seen with Musical.ly and Triller with social video interaction as a platform to basically give everyone and anyone in Asia a voice to tell their story from where they are in their language to the rest of the world. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's what I'm doing now. And yeah, I'm thankful that you guys had me on again this year to talk about what I'm doing.
Sure, really interesting. So cool. I think that's all the questions we have here. So Jason, I would like to thank you again for being here with us, sharing your thoughts and answering our questions.